Hello and welcome to another episode of the Making Theater podcast from MTV Arts and the Alcove Dinner Theater. I'm your host, Ian Ernsberger, and on today's episode, we follow up all our broken props, costumes, and set pieces with the many physical injuries we've received over the years. Now, Bruce somehow has avoided stage injuries, which is surprising because I have seen him do some really silly stuff in order to reach props, costumes, set pieces, and while even painting the set. Aaron Moreland, on the other hand, well, I really don't know how this man is still alive. I mean, I've had some stage injuries and some injuries outside of theater, obviously, but wow. It's like Aaron Moreland is a cat with 9 lives. So, let's get started with today's episode. Ouch, that hurts.
Aaron, I seriously, sometimes when you tell me some of the things that have actually even just happened to you in life, I have no idea how you're alive.
I know Bruce literally could be its own podcast. I mean,
I know Bruce has been injured a couple times. I know I've been injured. That's why I was like, this is like a perfect time when I've got you guys to be able to do this. I actually know mostly a lot of times you've been injured, Bruce. It's because of during like a set construction, like with Don Thomas.
Well, bonk on the head. Yeah, not during the performance. It's like, yeah.
But I remember things like that, or having a flat that you thought was attached, and then you go to lean on it, and it's not attached yet, and it falls down. So we've had a lot of those kind of things.
Yeah. I have very few, if any, injuries on stage. Mine are usually, like you said, related to putting the production together, that kind of thing. Yeah, just, is this going to hold as somebody's weight? Crash? No. Yeah. That kind of thing.
And it's amazing, though. I've seen you do a lot of stupid stuff, too, to be able to reach something or climb up to go and get a prop or a set piece, or paint
you do what
something.
You do.
That's the thing is I look at it and I go, how are you still alive? Because I remember when you got up and there was like, it was like the trash pile that they said, the barricade in Les Mis. And it was like you were climbing up that, essentially, to try and fix something that, and you've got a drill, so you're having to put pressure on something to screw it in. And I'm just like, how is this staying together?
Fearless.
Things that things shouldn't go together. And it doesn't fall, it doesn't break.
Yeah.
You're like, I probably had more injuries when it comes to school than I have here.
I really didn't get that many injuries. Bumps and bruises and a few cuts here and there, but no broken bones, knock on wood. Usually mine are going on stage with like 103 temperature or with a strep throat or something like that, or an upset stomach like you've been vomiting. Those kind of things. Those are, and of course, I'm going to do the show. Like Aaron's mom, Susan, did Lend Me a Tenor. And I remember her husband, Bob, drove her to the back, and she had 2 scenes. She played the Italian wife of the tenor. He drove her, got her up the stairs of the alcove. She came out, did the first scene, went backstage, and laid down on that cold, dirty floor of the kitchen in a fetal position.
In that bathroom.
In the bathroom.
And
then she did her last scene, and then Bob was waiting in the alley to take her home. I think, God bless her, but, people do that. Actors go on sick.
If you don't have understudies.
One of my very first theater injuries, because I was usually pretty lucky, surprisingly, was during Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum at OSU Mansfield. And we all did the, comedy tomorrow, tragedy tonight. We did the opening number. And at the end, we all got in a little tableau, and I was like, oh, I'm the slimy character. I'll slide across the floor and do this little thing like that. As I did that with my hand, there was a screw that had broken off. And it had gone into my hand. Yeah. And so here's the thing. I get up, and we were, all we had to do was just walk off and look all happy. And I'm like, how?
You leave a blood trail.
Yeah. And so I wrapped my hand and had all these Band-Aids on. And I, as soon as I walk on stage, I was like, so whoever's going to go out there after the show and get rid of anything and check every little nook and cranny of the floor, because there are nails sticking up that have been broken over the years. And I'm like, this sucks. Because it was just, and it took forever to heal because it's right on your palm.
Right.
And I was just like, that could have been so much worse. But how are you supposed to know? It's a little thing, a half an inch long, not even a half an inch long. That's one of my worst ones.
something similar. I was doing a national children's theater tour of Wizard of Oz and playing the Scarecrow. And I wore quite a few layers. I'd have a T-shirt. I had an elastic band, elastic that went around that held my mic pack. And then I wore this really big, bulky, thick, almost burlappy kind of sweater, and then burlap straps across, swaths across it and whatnot. So it's pretty thick layer. Well, every show that we were traveling and doing this in theaters across America. So, we'd be in these state-of-the-art, beautiful multi-million-dollar theaters, and sometimes we'd be in an older theater, or we'd be in a cafetorium at a school or at a church pulpit. We did it in all different kind of things. But one show we were doing in this pretty old theater, and there's this chase scene that happens where the witch would chase us through the audience. And one of my signature things that I would do, if I could do it, would be to run, just barrel down the, barrel through the audience and jump onto the stage and slide on my chest onto the stage, and then get up and be on stage for the next scene. Well, I didn't check the floor at this really old theater, the stage floor, and it was really old wood. And I did that slide, and I came up with about probably 15 to 20 splinters embedded into my chest. That had some had gone into the costume, some were really deep in my skin. One was a couple inches long.
My God, man.
And I remember getting up and going, oh, and then, I have to be all happy-go-lucky Scarecrow. And so I get up and I turn to Dorothy and I grab my shirt and I pull it away from my skin, and you could hear all the wood going being pulled out of the fabric as it stayed in my skin. And so we finished the show and got backstage. We had another show afterwards while they got a new audience in there. And during that time, I was pulling splinters out of my chest, and a couple of them had gone so deep that I actually had to cut a new hole in order to get them out. It was horrifically bad.
Again, I ask, how are you alive? The stupid
I learned to check the stage or not do that at all the rest of that tour.
Wow, man, that's
one of my first shows. It was here in Mount Vernon. It was a Carousel, and it was one of the first lead I played Jigger Craig, which was the villain, the antagonist. The director of instruction who hired me to teach in Mount Vernon schools was a very intimidating man, Bob Truman, and he always had little bit parts. Well, he played the night watchman and the constable. And he's on the end of the pier. And I come around and I devise the plot, my character, we're going to stab the cop and steal the money. So I go to run across the stage. And again, it's my second show ever. The pilings are in the wrong place. So I have to run a little further and jump up on the dock and run across. Well, the knife has to come up in the air and he grabs my wrist. No, it comes across and he grabs my wrist. I bring it up and he grabs the blade. Well, the director gave me a real knife to use. So it cut his fingers. Now, it wasn't deep, but it cut it enough to bleed, right? I wasn't aware of that. So it's the end of the scene. I leave the stage. The stage manager says, you cut Bob Truman. I said, oh, wow, really? So I went to go find him, and he goes, no, it's okay. They're putting Band-Aids, and they're fixing it, right? So somebody said the girl that's playing Julie Jordan, the lead, she's a method actress. And I didn't know a lot about this then, but they said she is a basket case and she has to go back on in Act 2, and she's just sobbing and crying. So I go downstairs after I find out how good, Bob is doing fine. So I said, hey, it's all right. Bob is fine. Bob, he's got a Band-Aid on his finger. She goes, I saw the blood. I said, I know, but he's fine. She goes, I'm not worried about me. I'm fine. It's Julie Jordan that I'm worried about. Talking about her character. And I looked at her and I said, Bruce is really sorry that he hurt Bob Truman, but Jigger could give a shit. I couldn't wrap my brain around the fact that she let that interfere with the fact the man was fine. But, that was an injury that I caused on stage to somebody. But it was fine. Wow, but boy, that was a strange introduction to theater. I just didn't realize that people would go that far with it. Her character was crying.
I did Male Animal at OSU Mansfield. I seem to get hurt at OSU Mansfield. So I did Male Animal at OSU Mansfield, and I'm this kind of the movie had Henry Fonda, so he was this kind of just everyday guy. I'm supposed to be a little drunk and I'm supposed to attack the jock football player who was the former boyfriend of the woman who is my wife. And we had it all worked out, and everything we had it was pretty choreographed of how we wanted to do things. And I said, well, I'm going to run at you, and it's almost like a little bit like the Jennifer Grey, Patrick Swayze thing.
Yeah.
You know, but instead, I'm going to, I'll be on your, he'll go like this and just almost like a fireman carry. And so I charge at him, and I have my hands like this, and I start to go up, and he goes too low.
Oh.
So when I get on top and he stands, half of my body is past him now. So he stands up, and I flip onto my spine.
Ooh.
And I think this was during a show. And it worked. And I popped right back up. And just like a drunk guy would, they pop back up, they're ready to fight. But then we had to go back out and run around. And I mean, I have no breath. Everything is gone for me. And I'm saying lines. I'm like, yeah. And you can't understand anything I'm saying. And everybody comes off afterwards. They're like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, I'm good. It's just get everything back. But it was just one miscalculation. And it was like, well, that sucked. That went wrong.
Aaron, you're trained in stage combat, correct?
At Tecumseh, the American Academy of Fight Directors, our director was a certified teacher of stage combat. So my first year there, I did broadsword, unarmed, and rapier and dagger. Yeah. And then I went back to college and I did rapier and dagger, quarterstaff, and unarmed. And then the next summer, so I did it like 3 years in a row, and I got certified. And then we did quarterstaff and short sword. And rapier and dagger. So but Tecumseh had some gnarly injuries. One year, we had this one guy, his nickname was Coco. I don't remember his real name. I remember his name Coco. But his first move in one of the fights, and this is during a show, he was a pretty muscular dude, had, big muscular chest and had muscles on him. But his first move is to take that rifle and do a swipe at one of the Shawnee. But the first thing he did was shoot the gun. So he would shoot the gun, and then he would be rushed by a Shawnee, and then he would take his rifle, the butt of it, and swing at it and miss, right? Well, he did a couple things wrong, and it gave him a pretty gnarly injury. Normally, when you're dealing with firearms, especially at Tecumseh, if you have a misfire, you have to kind of announce it to your fight partner. And a misfire means that, because they're using old-style weapons, that the cap didn't go off when the hammer struck it, and so you still have live gunpowder in there. They're using real live gunpowder, but they're packing it with leaves so that it disperses really quickly. It's not wadding, and of course, there is no lead ball in there.
Like blanks. Like blanks.
Yeah, pretty much. So he had a misfire. He didn't announce it to his fight partner. And then he also, when he did that initial move, when you take that butt of the gun over your head, you're supposed to keep the barrel under your arm so it's not pointing toward yourself. Well, he had it pointing right at his chest. And then he was out of control and hit the butt of the gun against the ground. And it set off the gun with the barrel about an inch from his chest. And it went off. And so it actually, because it was only an inch, did quite a bit of like tissue damage.
Sure. Yeah.
And luckily, if it would have happened to me at the time, I weighed like $140. It would have killed me. It would have got me right in the heart. I would have been dead. But he was pretty built up, so his muscle kind of took most of the damage to it. But they life flighted him out of there. Granted, he did come back a couple days later and continue on with the show. But that injuries can get, when you start dealing with fake firearms, like Tecumseh, you've got explosions going off, you have cannon fire, you have squibs going off all over the stage for the report of the cannons that get shot, you have live horses, so you can get injured. So I will tell you about another injury that happened during a rehearsal process to me at Tecumseh. I was one of the assistant equestrians, which means I pretty much would go to the barn, clean the hooves of the horse, and the barn was about a mile away, and then I would ride the horses to and from the stage back to the barn before and after the show. Well, we were having rehearsal in the afternoon once, and one of the other actors said, "Hey, can I ride one of your horses?" We cleared it with the equestrian, and we all started riding back. But what, as a group, and what he didn't know, the person that was riding for the first time with the equestrians, is that you don't run them. They're pack animals. If you try to run one of them when you get to this field, they're all going to want to go. Well, he started running, and normally most people are riding a horse and leading one. You had 2 horses. And so he started running with this horse. And one of the other horses, who was like kind of the alpha, said, that horse isn't running if I am. So he took off. And my buddy who was riding that horse said, hey, grab the horse I'm leading. Victor needs to go, right? So I get up in between them, grab that secondary horse, and then Victor takes off. Well, as soon as Victor takes off, my horse goes, I'm running too. But the one I'm leading says, nah, I'm not going to run. So I get kind of pulled off my seat, and all of a sudden we're running through this field at full gallop, and I don't have my seat. This is bareback riding, no saddle. You got to have your seat or you're going to fall off. Well, right at the end of the field is a gravel area, and all the horses slowed down pretty quickly there. My buddy in front of me got thrown off and hit a fence sideways. Bam. I got, as mine slowed down, I grabbed the horse's neck and slid underneath my horse, and it tromped all around me with its hoofs clipping my body. I landed on gravel too, so I had scratches from my shoulder all the way down to the opposite kind of butt cheek there, just these massive scratches. And then all the clips from the horse cut me, and I lifted my head up, and that back heel kicked me in the head from his from the horse's gallop. So I had this massive cut on my nose and a big black eye. It scratches all over. I looked like, it was all surface wounds. There was nothing deep, but I looked like I had been put through the ringer. Well,
again, though, how are you still alive?
How am I still alive, right?
Every story.
But the good news is, well, the bad news is that they changed all the rules, and the equestrians didn't get to have as much fun on their horses because it got ruined for everybody. But
Yeah.
secondly, in that show, there's a prisoner exchange, and in one of the scenes, they're exchanging prisoners, and one of the frontiersman prisoners is beat up really badly. And so I said, hey, you don't have to do makeup for about a week. You can use me as your prisoner, right? So I would strip off everything and have all these gnarly wounds on my back, and I would be the prisoner for about a week. So I got to play an extra part.
So was it from that moment on you swore to yourself you would break every prop you come in contact with?
Yes.
To get even?
It would be a sacrifice to the theater gods in order to not hurt myself.
Yes.
I would destroy a prop.
You break props so you don't get hurt. It's a trade-off.
Right.
So Bruce, you say you've been lucky enough lucky enough when doing other things that are really stupid, you've safely done them. But I know apparently when other people are around you helping build something, that's when you get hurt. So when you're by yourself, you don't get hurt at anything. But if someone is with you building a set,
it depends on who's with me. See, I did most of Mary Poppins, and I worked alongside Rob Devlin, did a few things in there, but that was pretty much, Joe did a couple of things for us, and then I took on some things. That's when we didn't have a full-time set.
I built stuff. Yeah.
But no, I mean, I was fine with that, but no, mostly it was the beginning years, like with Don Thomas at the alcove. And he had asked me to hold something, and I'd stand right underneath him, and a 2x4 would fall about 4 feet down and hit me on the head. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. It just kind of bounced off the top of my head. That explains a lot.
That's why you need a hard hat area.
Yeah.
Well,
and I know
your mother, Susan, she went to the emergency room after we did Rumors the first time. We used to have to take the set apart at the alcove, the stage. And the way it worked is there were bolts that held the legs up, and we had to unscrew those bolts and fold them under. Well, that was heavy wood, and it was on its side. And those legs folded up in, and it caught the tip of her finger and almost took it off. She was in so much pain. And this was the next morning after the show. But she has a fun story that she was in the emergency room bay, and the doctors took x-rays. She's waiting. And the woman in the bay next to her with the curtain kept hearing her talk to the doctor. And the woman pulled the curtain. She goes, "Were you in the dinner theater last night? We saw you. You were wonderful." She had a fan in the next bay.
Right,
but yeah, I mean, that was pretty hairy. I mean, she almost passed out.
Yeah.
She was in a lot of pain with that. Yeah.
I've had a couple close calls. Like, so during, because I overheat a lot. And I try and stay as hydrated as I can, but I'm like going, full tilt. And I remember, and I hadn't eaten breakfast either, so I was really stupid. But during Crucible, I basically lost sight for about 2 minutes. I stood up when I was talking to, I think it was Abigail or the other girl that was in the bed. So not only was it dangerous because that set was incredibly dangerous, but it was dangerous because I stood up and all sight went away. I saw all the little dots go. And I was saying lines to you and Aaron. I'm just like, I know you're in front of me and I know I don't have to move. So we'll just wait. And then eventually it kind of cleared up. And I've had it happen during that. I had it happen during Little Shop. I had it happen because I was just constant doing crap in that. And I had it happen during Addams Family. And Addams Family was when it was really bad because I was there and I was trying to do Not Today, and I'm like, I don't even know words at this point. I can't even communicate. Yeah.
You're under a bunch of lights. You're usually wearing heavy costumes. And you're wearing
Mary Poppins, I got a little hot, and then I just laid there because I didn't get an intermission. I had to go right into harnesses and flight checks and all that stuff. So I never got an intermission, and it was so hot in the theater that I would just lay there on the floor and people would fan me and hand me water until they'd be like, we're going to do the other people's flight checks first, and then we'll have you do yours. I was like, thank you. So, but yeah, those were some of the scarier ones when it came to just like, not like I, hurt my leg or I had a bunch of bruises, but it was just like, oh, I can't see or say a word.
Yeah, I remember you getting quite a few bruises when we did the dinner theater of Lie, Cheat, and Genuflect.
Well, that's because I was really stupid back then.
You were throwing yourself around like
I was really stupid back then. That was mostly, I think, when I had to fall down the steps. When we came on, I did a lot of it was when I had the needle.
Yes. Yeah.
Whatever. What's that stuff called? The
Novocaine.
Novocaine. So I had the Novocaine, and I would just flop around like a fish back and forth. And my elbows would have bruises. My legs would have bruises. Audience liked it though.
That was definitely one of those situations where you were suffering for your art.
Yeah. That was also the show that right in the middle of the scene, a woman fainted and fell out of her chair. Yep. And we had to stop the show.
And then pick it back up with the line, I think he's dead.
We had to wait for the paramedics to come. She was fine.
Yeah.
And you guys started up with the line is, I think he's dead. Yeah.
That show had a lot of injuries. And here's the thing. I remember doing the bottle, the breaking the bottle. And I remember there being a lot of drama over the breaking of the bottle over my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
But here was the thing.
It was a breakaway bottle.
But it can still cut you. It can still hurt you.
It's compressed sugar.
Yeah. But if it hits you in the wrong spot, it can go in your eye or anything. So we had a fake bottle that we were practicing with, and every time I would run out, she'd hit me in the wrong spot. And I'm like, I'm not going to use this real bottle until you can actually consistently hit me 3 times in a row. Where I want you to hit me.
Yeah. Was it a water bottle?
Just a water bottle. Yeah, just a water bottle.
Plastic water bottle.
And I'm just like, if you can't hit me here, I'm not doing this. No offense. But it was like, I'm getting hurt enough in shows and everything. And I'm just like, you're like that last time you hit me, it was in the eye. So if you break this glass, it's going in my eye. So luckily, we did do it consistent every night. But rehearsals, not so much. And brush-ups. But I do remember that. I remember everyone being more afraid during Shrek that I was going to be hurt because I was always on my knees and I was doing stupid stuff on my knees. Be like, are you sore? Are you sore? I said, I'm just tired. Luckily, we bought, catcher's pads because I watched a bunch of videos of Chris Sieber doing it on Broadway. And afterwards, he would go and do yoga. He would have to do therapy because he did it for 2 years straight. I did it for 8 shows.
Yeah.
And
2 years of that. Wow.
Yeah. So he was in there for workshops. He was in there when it was, just previews. He was there when it ran for 1.5 years. And I watched him and he was like, yeah, we got catcher's pads. And I said, Janice, can we get catcher's pads? She said, get whatever you need. So I went out to think, and here's funny thing, going to, like a Dick's Sporting Goods and saying, So I'm on my knees a lot. Like I get that I'm not trying to have a ball hit my knee or anything or my legs to protect me from that. I'm going to be walking on my knees. And they were like, what? I said, well, I'm playing Lord Farquaad. And they were like, who? I said, Shrek, the little guy. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Well, you got to do that? Yep. They said, well, you're going to want these.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And that was the only time it hurt was during the jumping jacks, which were a stupid idea anyway that I had. But that was the only time it hurt because I was jumping up and down. But other than that, I was just tired. The show that hurt the most was My Cheat and Beauty and the Beast. The second time, not so much because I got smart. And I said, Matt, don't just, because what we would do is consistently was just, the cartoon was bonk him on the top of the head, he falls straight down. Didn't matter what kind of pad we bought. And that was all he'd ever do was just bonk me on the head, bonk me on the head, bonk me on the head. And I said, well, I'll just drop straight down. And I was doing that before I even had pads. So I was really stupid, but I was just trying to get used to it. I was like, oh, I'll just numb my kneecaps, whatever. I'll just numb myself to the pain. I was really stupid in 2007.
Yeah, it's really important, especially if you're doing a show for an extended period of time, to learn those ways to sell the fact that you're getting hurt or that you're getting punched or that you're falling, to be able to sell it and let it real, but not actually hurt yourself.
Yep.
So that's key, and that's really.
It's called acting. It's called acting.
I just, for me, because again, I was young and stupid. It was just, I'd hear the little kid laugh, and I'd go, okay, I'm on to something, and then I wouldn't even think about it after that. I'd just be like, I've got what I need to do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that backfired a lot. So I'm, in 20 years gonna be like Chevy Chase. It was still worth it. The pain, I guess. Because a lot of times, you kind of I got picked on a lot when I was a kid, so I'd get punched and kicked and all that stuff when I was a little kid. So I would just look at it and go, whatever, it doesn't hurt anymore. It's you're kind of numb to it. Unfortunately, falling directly on your kneecap doesn't just numb. So, I remember the first time we did Beauty and the Beast, blowing out my knee, and I never got it looked at, never got it scoped, never got a test or anything done to it. I just blew it out and did a show the next day. Blew it out the end of Act 1, doing my little thing with the little song with Gaston. Went through, sat downstairs, the ice pack on me, telling kids to go away or I'll get mad at you. And then going and doing all of Act 2 and then coming back and doing it again Sunday matinee.
Well, yeah.
What do you do?
I sprained my ankle really bad right before
Pirates.
for the second time of Pirates.
I remember that.
And I had to sing and dance on that leg the entire time, and it slowed the recovery of that by months. I was not right in that ankle until about March, and that was a September show.
Yeah,
it would have healed a lot sooner had I not wrapped it really tight and danced on it for 2.5 weeks after doing it.
Yeah, I remember that. That was
horrible.
I remember that. That was bad.
But the old saying, the show must go on.
And of course, we're not union, so
yeah, exactly. We're all volunteer. So we do this. We do this just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Now we have had to cancel a show as a dinner theater when my mom hurt her knee.
That was and honestly, it was the worst thing to happen because I hated seeing your mom hurt, but it was the best thing to happen because that show needed to be postponed for just a little bit longer.
Yeah,
to make it just
it's
right.
happened before. That's the downside of not having the.
But we did it. We did the show a year later.
Yep. Yeah. And we left everything there. Everything was still up. All the props and things were all still there.
Yeah. It was 2 nights before we opened.
Yeah.
And it was a benefit we were opening for.
And she had to have surgery on that knee.
Yeah.
It was interesting because the woman that was arranging the benefit really didn't have an idea about theater. And she said, well, can't somebody just come out with a book?
Yeah. No, we did that for Dial M. That's the only show you could do that for. No, and I try as much as I can anymore to not hurt myself. I figured, now, Sweeney, that was my idea, but it needed to happen to come out and, shoot out from it to look like I had come from the upstairs. But there was no way to do that safely.
Right.
There really was no, I looked at that from every aspect and went, I'm moving my body in this direction. I mean, I am going one way and then turning, 75 degrees the other while throwing myself out, because
Right.
there was no other way to, the way they had everything supported. So it never really hurt. I hurt myself one time, and that's because I slammed into the stupid chest.
Into the state.
It hit, the chest, because it was right there, and I was like, oh, there it is. And that's why the first night, it was when Ruthie had that genuine reaction, because I never told her I was going to do it. So I was right at her. I mean, I came out and I landed right in front of her. I smacked my elbow into that, and I was like, ow. But this is great, because her reaction, I could see it with my dead eyes, quote unquote dead eyes. But I was just, she was all the way up there, up on top of the chest. But I can't
Dangerous
believe
business, Theater.
Yeah,
It's a dangerous business.
You just have to be safe. And I'm
No
sure
no place for cowards.
No.
Okay.
And the thing is,
No.
I don't ever really remember watching anybody else really get hurt. At Weather Vane, a girl who was just like a chicken with her head cut off as a stage manager was moving the set pieces for Legally Blonde, and they would bring out the courtroom. They hid it underneath a platform, and it would just be on a roller. And she would go as fast as you can and run around, and she went and her head first into the beam above of the support for the platform. She was out. And it was just like,
Wow.
You got to take your
Wow.
time. I mean, I know we've got quick scene changes and things like that, but stuff like that, especially tech-wise, you have to be as safe as possible.
Definitely. You have to be fully aware of your surroundings at all times.
During that same season, one of the girls that was going to be playing Elle Woods was a bit character during, I think, Singing in the Rain. And she got hurt and busted her face open. And they were like, well, you got to be hot. You're Elle Woods. So she got plastic surgery to help. And so she was out for like the rest of the shows. She wasn't in anything. She was just resting up and healing before she did Legally Blonde.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people fall off the stage backwards into the orchestra pit.
Yep.
Yeah, we had a kid do that during Music Man.
I've seen that.
I've seen at Tecumseh, a good friend of mine fell off his horse on stage and broke his arm. I've seen a lot. I've seen a good friend of mine was operating the cannon and was holding, it went off early and she was holding the thing that you pack it with, and it shot it out and just cut her hand all up.
Yeah.
So you've got to be.
I mean, I've had my hand caught in door frames. People, you're running in and closing the door as you leave or something, and you're just not clear of it. And, it's one of those things where you just have to be safe for anybody, young, old, it doesn't matter. Accidents can happen, and, you just got to protect yourself and others and do everything in your power to protect them.
It's a big thing about the alcove. We always have steps with rails and well lit, especially in that back corner.
Yeah.
The last thing you want is for somebody to stumble down the steps or reach for a rail that's not there.
Yeah. I mean, I remember during playing Doctor jumping through that dumb window that we made, and it was safe-ish, but that was also right where that old vent was.
Yeah.
So you would have to try and avoid that, but you couldn't see it because there was the sky curtain behind it.
Yeah.
So we would have to kind of jump from that, and I would have to, it would be Thane and then myself, and we would jump through, and he'd have to hurry up and get out of the way because I'm coming right after him, and he was not a small guy, and you'd be right
So it
on
looks like
top
you're
of
falling,
me, top
2
of a
stories? Was it 2
We were
stories?
supposed to be about 2 stories.
Yeah.
And then the best
So you
part
had to
was
duck.
that you'd
had to duck
see
as
us.
you jumped.
No, because there was a scene where we jumped past it, and then we jumped the other way. And I don't know why that was the thing. I think it was just a story, but even then I'm like, how are we running across both directions at this person? But there's anywhere. I mean, even the memorial, that Crucible set, that was pretty dangerous for us.
We had one of the
fall out
mass
right
students
before the
fall off
show.
back. And whenever I was on stage with Bill Bridges, I made sure I was.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing, because
don't go off the stage.
He fell and luckily split his legs enough where he could just land without landing on any of those floor lights that were always there. I mean, we've had that. We had the kid fall during Music Man, and that was when there was all of the orchestra stuff in there. And he just his gangly little body landed in the only way that he avoided everything. So, I mean,
Wow.
I've done that. I've fallen backstage a couple of times. I fell down the steps during Bye Bye Birdie 2 seconds before I had to come out and sing Kids
No.
because my shoes
Well,
gave out.
I think when this podcast is released, we're gonna have OSHA watching everything we're doing. Thanks, Ian.
Well, and they're going to be
Thanks.
going, and people are going, should we really loan any props to any of these people
Right.
ever again?
We have discredited ourselves on the safety issues, on the borrowing issue.
My name is going to be on their borrowing form. Is Aaron Moreland in the show? No. Yes. Okay. You can't borrow that.
No, we do. We do all. Their accidents are going to happen no matter what. That's the thing. I mean, they really are. We have done everything, and we always reiterate that during rehearsals. We reiterate that during tech rehearsals. We reiterate that almost in not curtain speeches, but in like green room speeches. We just have to be careful. I was very glad, Aaron, that you specifically said we are doing fight choreography runs and chair runs during Sweeney Todd, because
Great
anything
show.
could have gone wrong with that chair, especially.
A lot of moving parts in
Yeah,
that.
just
you
one
could
little
sprain
thing
your
to
ankle
that.
on it, you get caught on something, hit your head. The box, the square was quite small, so if you were to ever get in the habit of leaning forward while coming out that chair, you would hit your head across wood.
And we're talking Kate has to go through this.
Right. Yeah.
So, and she
practiced it every
did
night.
that a couple of times where she immediately had to put her hands up because she was going towards it. We never had it during a run. We had, we did the fight between you and Sweeney that I would sit back and watch. We had the fight with Sweeney and Pirelli. We had all the stuff during Pirelli and Ruthie. So we made sure we did a fight choreography thing for Saving Up. We always did the punch.
Yep.
So, I mean, and that's, you just have to. So
have to keep it in your muscle memory.
Yep. And that was fine. We even did that before we did it for when we took to Octa.
Mm-hmm.
So we still were running things like that. And
You put it in there with your you do it with your choreography stretches and warm-ups. You do it with your vocal warm-ups. Anything that takes precision, you got to warm it up before it's an instrument. You got to warm it up.
Yeah.
And we did that for Mice and Men with the fight between myself and Matt.
Yep.
We also built those set pieces so that they'd be strong enough to be able to, because I ended up on my back on the table and we'd be crawling across the beds. So it's all about the set construction, making it
what you're saying is that is the only set that you have ever not destroyed because you specifically built it and had it built for you to not be able to destroy.
Right.
All righty. Well, thank you very much, guys. We'll catch you for the next one.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. The only thing missing was alcohol.
Oh, no, that's what I had here. It was too late.
Well, we've had some pretty close calls and kept going, and that's really all that matters. You just have to be careful and be as safe as you can. Accidents are going to happen. Sometimes they happen to Aaron Moreland a lot more than anyone else, but they happen. Until next time, I'm your host, Ian Ernsberger, and this has been the Making Theater Podcast. Please remember to like and share this podcast. And remember to follow us at MTV Arts on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and the Alcove Dinner Theater under Bruce Jacklin and Company on Facebook and Instagram. Please feel free to comment on the post about the podcast and tell us what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, and any kind of suggestions you might have for another podcast down the road.